what are the things that you guys did to transition from an engineer to a product manager?
A lot of people actually influenced me to get to the spot where I am and also be interested in product management. But one single person, if you asked me to point to, is Steve Jobs.
One thing that I'll say is transitioning internally, as we talked about, is way easier than transitioning to like an external company, because it's hard to prove that you have that relevant product management experience when you're going and applying for a new role, which is a product manager or a new company.
Let's say I started applying, I'm doing interviews, etc. So, what do you think a candidate should do in order to make sure he's ready for product management interviews? Hi everyone, welcome back to our podcast, Everything Product. We talk about latest technologies and various product management concepts. This is Funny Uyuru. I'm a product manager at a startup.
This is Srinath. I'm a product manager at JP Morgan.
This is Sid Saladi. I'm a product manager working for Best Buy.
Awesome, welcome back, guys. Today I want to talk about our journeys. So, if I think about all three of us, right? We three were engineers some time back, and then we wanted to move into a product management profession. We did several things, and then we eventually became successful product managers. Hopefully, I can use successful right now. So, let's start with this, right? So maybe let's take a step back. So all of us were engineers. Let me start with a very simple question. Like, what what did why did you guys want to become product managers? Maybe Sidhu, let me start with you.
Sure, funny. So it looks like a behavioral question for me, but yeah. Uh, as you said, right, I've started as an engineer. So initially, I was working on developing a specific set of software, writing the requirements and developing coding. But somewhere I kind of felt that I was not having the complete autonomy of understanding the users, defining a solution for the users, and creating something that is actually impacting someone who is using in the field. So I felt it was more of me implementing something which was defined by some other person. So that's where I wanted, kind of that whole circle experience where I define an idea to a product. So that's where I went and started exploring different roles and different opportunities and things like that. Intentionally picked a course which was new product development and while I was doing MBA. And this course was all about getting an idea from a 0 to 1, which is, you a group of people come together trying to solve a problem, putting that into an idea, then developing a solution for that and implementing that and finally launching that. So after I went through that course, right, it kind of pulled me towards product management. I learned more about it, start digging deep and trying to understand what it is and all of that stuff. That's when I finally made my mind that I have to become product manager, and then pivoted towards moving into a product role.
That's nice. Yeah. If I think about mine also, right, very similar thought process. Where like we were engineers, we are building products. I still say that I'm an engineer, right? So even being a product manager, I'm still building products. Might not be hands-on coding, but in my head, I'm an engineer. I'm building products and solving problems for the customer. Actually, let me double down on that. So, Srinath, maybe let me ask you this one. So, we would have done courses, or we would have talked to people, or we would have done several other things, right? What is your trigger point to say, hey, I want to become a product manager?
Basically, trying to solve a problem. So I was working with a product manager in building that system, an internal system, which helps to basically plan the capacity to meet the customer demand. So that really, opened my eyes on how a product manager, what a product manager would do, and how they are probably different from like a business analyst or other program managers. So that was, to be honest, the trigger point. I felt like a product manager is able to get that end-to-end view that you guys were talking about, starting from the pain point observation to launching that and seeing a happy face on the customers. So that was my trigger point, and that's how I slowly started to think about how I can transition into a product manager. Obviously, I mean, it was not easy journey, but it was not impossible. It's just creating that career ladder through mentorship and feedback really helped me.
Got it. Yeah. That's also very interesting, right? So I know you were specifically focusing on supply chain, and I know you were very focused on operation side of things and stuff. And then eventually you converted into a product manager where you were driving products at different angles. I know your role is also like product operations manager. It's also like even more broader, right? You need to understand operations, you need to understand different countries, scale of products, etc., and then continue to build them. Cool. Let
Yeah.
me ask you one more thing. There is always an influence that we typically have. So I can honestly tell this, right? So when I wanted to become a product manager, a couple of people that were always in my mind. One is Satya Nadella, and the other one is Sundar Pichai, because I could see a direct correlation. They are engineers. They have similar backgrounds as us. They came, worked really hard on several of their products, owned their products, and eventually grown to become CEOs of like biggest companies, biggest tech companies in the world. So, are there any big influences that you guys had to transition into like product management?
Couple, I'll say first, Elon Musk. I think he thinks out of box ideas which probably think are impossible, but he takes an idea to reality. And take an example of a Tesla electric car. He told 5 year I think 5 to 6 years ago, that he will make a Tesla affordable and basically get everyone buy a Tesla. And I felt like the where he started, where no one has thought of an electric car. Now I think it's a commuting car for many people. And the other influencer which I can think of is, Sundar Pichai. For me, the way Google builds the products that customer love is amazing. I think he took Android to a next level. I mean, so many different capabilities, the market share, and building so many awesome phones. So the Pixel, which has the best camera out there and all. So I'll say these are my top two influencers. And I would like to hear from, Sidhu, do you have anything to share?
Yeah, so I think that's like inspiration from everywhere, right? So a lot of people actually influence me to get to the spot where I am and also be interested in product management. But one single person, if you ask me to point to, is Steve Jobs. I have his picture right in front of me, and I have this quote which says, "People who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do." And I kind of completely believe it, the full philosophy. And also, I feel that. Uh, I I have this bug in my mind where I keep trying side hustles and side stuff. And whenever I used to do all of these things, right, it was more tribal way of doing things, where I didn't understand all of the processes of getting something from an idea to something which is actually working and other people using it. So it was me trying to put things together and figuring out and all of that stuff. But once I started understanding what product management is, each of the steps made sense in a better way for me, and also helped me shape that specific step using different tools and all, right? So product management is a set of tools. It's morely like I look at it as a set of tools and frameworks that will help you to get from that idea to product, right? Uh, so I think that's what where my drive is, and that's what helps me get up in the morning solving complex problems for people and solving it in a really good way.
Yes.
What
Let
about
me
you,
let me
Fanny?
deep dive on that, Siddhu. um, for me, similar, right? So at least I always wanted to become a product manager from the time I was doing my MBA and stuff. I got introduced to the role when I started my MBA, and then I strived a lot to get to that role. But a biggest pain point, and I think we'll be deep diving a lot on that today, is transitioning from an engineer to a product manager. It's a lot of changes, especially when someone is going through a career change, and especially when you're going through someone going from a role where you're like very deep into code, very deep into actually building a product, and your scope is narrow, but you're very deep into it, to a role where you're like very broad. You don't have to deep dive into everything. Obviously you'll deep dive into several things, but you don't have to deep dive into everything. You'll be relying on several other people to tell you things, and you'll have to think very holistically, probably like few years down the line, vision for the product, etc. So we are very passionate about product management and we want to help all the product management aspirants out there. So if you're liking our videos, don't forget to subscribe and share it with all of your friends. Let me ask you that question. So what are the things that you guys did to transition from an engineer to a product manager? Sidhu,
So
maybe let me start.
yeah, I'd say it's different for people in different states of life, or in their career, right? So for a fresher, the overall journey is little different than a person who is real experienced, right? For a fresher, the route might be him going through maybe certain rotational programs, assistant product manager programs, internships, or also maybe doing side projects and all of that stuff, and then building some connections and then getting into certain companies and all of that stuff. So that's the fresher part. But I was more on the experience side, right? Where I had a undergrad degree in electronics and communication and the same master's degree in electrical engineering, and I did a little bit of coding and requirement stuff and all of that. And now I wanted to move into more. So the first thing, at least at that point, the first step for me was to get into an MBA, try to understand, what my strengths are on the business side, and then pick one role which I'm actually really interested in. So as I was doing my MBA, right, I figured out product management is the way where I have to want to get into. But it was not easy, right? Because I have already gained a little bit of experience doing certain roles in the software side of things, and I wanted to move into product management. So one way of doing it for me was to apply for roles inside my company itself. Right? So that was the first move towards moving into product. Even that was tougher because at that time, product management roles were not that common and not that popular, and all of the companies were either still transitioning towards a product uh, company, or they didn't even have product roles. They just had project managers and PAs and all. So I think two things which helped me were reaching out to other people to give me some product work, right? So where I can help them craft the vision of a product, right? Help them define what the roadmap could be. Also do some customer interviews, trying to gather feedback and user needs and all of that stuff. So that was one piece, and the second one was constantly trying to apply inside the company itself, and also talking to your manager saying that I'm trying to move into this role. If there's an opportunity, please pull me in. So that's where I was tagged into some product opportunities, and people were coming to me to get some of these things done, and that made my transition much easier, I'd say.
Nice. Srinath, how did
Very
you do it
interesting. A
on
lot
your
of
end?
learnings there.
At least in my opinion, a software engineer to product management transition is the best transition. I'll tell you why. So, as a software engineer, your mind is built into like problem solving. Whenever a problem comes to you, you'll be thinking very deep into what could be an engineering solution that I can build to solve the customer problem. As a product manager, you take a very big step back and find out all of those problems that our customers are facing. So in my opinion, engineer, a natural extension for a product manager is an engineer. So if you're someone who's interested into transition into a product management role from a software engineer, I would say that's a perfect transition that you can do.
So my journey started. So when I was working as a product ops manager, I mean, one of my key goals was to make sure I set up all the operational teams for success in terms of the tools, so we can service our customers with the new products that we launch. And as a single-threaded owner and a front face for them, my job is also to make sure we prioritize the pain points for our internal teams, like for instance the tools necessary, that the capabilities that we need to, so we can service our customers better. So when I was working with our product management, a lot of these, because these were internal tools, the customer facing tools were always getting prioritized over this. So that really opened my eyes, like, okay, I mean, I always have to rely on others to get things done. I mean, if this is the way, this is never going to get prioritized. How can I just take myself a lead, thinking like a product manager, taking that feature myself, and build it on my own? And of course, if I have questions, I mean, I can figure out through mentorship and guidance and all. So that's how it's all started. So I first started building a feature for a customer service team with an Amazon, where we help provide visibility into the payment methods, the invoice preferences for customers, so they can better troubleshoot customer questions. So when I started doing that, obviously initially it was very challenging because as a product manager, you need to first write a BRD, right? So writing a BRD, right, just coming out there, it's tough. So that really helped me. I mean, the of course through mentorship and the advice from the experienced product managers, I was able to write a BRD, get alignment from our leadership, and build that. And there was a lot of learnings. I mean, it was my first product launch, and but I treated that as an opportunity as I developed P1, P2 features. So that's how it started. And I felt like, okay, this is my space. I think this is what I would be loving to do in future. And I slowly transitioned into more into product management.
That's nice. So if I take a 5,000 feet view of what you guys told, right? So basically, you guys found opportunities within your company. You basically took that step. You took that initiative on your own to say, "Hey, I want to learn about this role. So let me find opportunities within my company." And then one other thing that you also did is you took that initiative to actually do the work that a product manager does. So that way, you get to learn things as you continue to make progress with your current work, and then start the journey. One more thing that I want to add,
Yeah.
right? So I know we are specifically focusing on people who are probably transitioning that role from an engineer into a product manager. One more thing that I would also suggest is, or at least that personally helped me, is problem solving. So in general, when we think about an engineer, and one of the biggest skills that we can transfer from being an engineer to product manager is problem solving. So as an engineer, you take a problem, you define how exactly you want to solve it, and then build the corresponding code, build the corresponding product for it. So as a product manager, you also do the exact same thing, but you do it in a multifaceted way. So you don't actually build the solution, but rather you find the problem. You actually literally find problems. You don't let the problem come to you. You find problems and then say how I can solve this problem on my own, or take that initiative, find more details to see why is this happening, who are the impacted customers, and then eventually get to a solution which is implemented by an engineer.
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting point. And one thing which I also would like to add here is what an engineer should not do. I mean, I did myself as well. So as an engineer, I was, to be honest, in my early days, I was never letting my engineering ego go. I was thinking the way I build the feature is the right, rather than thinking from what a customer wanted. So removing that engineering ego from the mind really helped me to think from a customer's shoes rather than what I would do.
So I think that's a very important point. So I also had this problem initially when I moved from an engineer to a product manager. I used to jump into conclusions, right, or solutions, where I found a problem and then I was to try solving the problem. Then after doing it a while, right? So I had to take a step back because I'm not the person who's going into solutions, right? I want to understand the problem thoroughly. I want to understand the root cause of the problem thoroughly. Then I want to maybe get into the room with some engineers to try to figure out what the solution is and contribute towards it, rather than me figuring out what the problem is and also the solution and getting into that. So that's something like a pitfall for anybody who moves from an engineer role to a product manager role.
But I'm very surprised to hear that Srinath has ego.
Not now. Probably in my early days, I will say. I mean, I'll be honest there. When I was fresh in my career, when I started as an engineer, I felt like I was very narrow minded, just focusing on the engineering aspects. But slowly, when I was transitioning, oh, okay, that's not the way I should think when building products. So that really opened my eyes.
thinking about Thinking very deep into what is the exact right solution to build, because as an engineer you'll be like, I want it to be perfect, I want it to be exactly what it has to do, I'm very optimized, etc. But rather than thinking about how to solve it in a very deep way, take a step back and say what exactly is needed for the customer. I'm just going to build on that and then continue to move to the other important problems, rather than solving the perfect way from an engineering standpoint.
Yeah, and especially when you
Yeah.
are in very early in your career, right? You're full of energy, and every product manager in the early days of his career wants to make his product the one-stop shop, right? It does everything for everybody. So I think that's not how it works, right? Then you, as you move into your role, you try to understand what prioritizing is, what problem is, what the root cause is, what do we have to solve for, what you build, and all of those things. So one other thing I want to
Yeah.
mention. Uh, so there was one very very good tip a mentor of mine gave me when I was transitioning from an engineer to a manager. It was like, don't ever try to do two things at a time. Either transition your role or the company. Don't try to do both at once, because that helped me a lot. Because at least that helped me try to gain that experience internally, do tasks as a product manager internally, gain some more experience, and then shift a company. So it's not necessary you won't get a role, but it makes it double the uh, double hard to get into a role and also change the company. So try to do one at once.
Nice. Actually, let's deep
Yeah.
dive a little bit more on the interview side of things as well, right? So let's say I'm an engineer. I've been an engineer for the last 5 years. I'm like very deeper into my product. I know ins and outs of it. Now I need to transition into product management, or I want to transition into product management. So let's say I started applying. I'm doing interviews, etc. So what do you think a candidate should do in order to make sure he's ready for product management interviews? Hope you're enjoying our video so far. If you're liking it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Srinath, let me start with you.
W- w- Yeah, one thing that I'll say is transitioning internally, as we talked about, is way easier than transitioning to like an external company, because it's hard to prove that you have that relevant product management experience when you're going and applying for a new role, which is a product manager or a new company. So, if anyone is basically looking out to transition, if there is any way, first explore that way, because you understand the culture, you understand the company, so you are probably have to go through fewer interviews, and through connections probably you'll be able to get a transitioning time and all. So that's the first thing that I would advise for any engineer out there who is who wants to transition. But for an external interview, it needs a complete different set of preparation. As an engineer, as many of us know, we probably need to do a lot of lead coding, do a lot of this, the algorithms and all that stuff, which is completely different preparation versus a product management interview, which typically has a product design, behavioral, product strategy, those kind of questions, which requires a different set of preparation. So for a product manager interview, basically, explore the kind of the key themes that would be tested in product management interview. Like I said, the product design, product strategy, the behavioral, the analytical, these are usually the top four ones which are tested in interview. So explore that in detail, try to figure out how you can practice the questions around those themes so you can answer that questions better. So the journey can be, it can take a little longer, because I mean obviously we may not have that experience, but it's not impossible as long as you can relate your answers, and think like a product manager when you're building. Even though you're an engineer, you might have built some products, some features. If you think that from a product manager shoes, and answer these questions, that'll really help during your interviews. Any insights
Nice.
from you guys?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people ask me this question, right? Like, which course should I do or which certification should I do to get into product management? But I think that's not a way to get into product management. Neither is applying for every product manager job you see. So these are not the ways where you transition into a product manager, right? So I would say try to understand what the role is, right? Why is the role? Why does the role even exist, right? What is a product manager trying to do? The product manager is trying to get an idea to a product phase, right, which is usable to the users and provide some value to the user. So he's actually working with all of these teams who are putting the collaborate and everybody keep everybody in the same vision and try to get to that the other side of the road where the product is usable for the user. So that's what the role demands, right? For that, how do you get experience to get to that point? I'd say there is a lot of material outside in the internet, right? YouTube University, right? YouTube is the biggest asset for you, right? Go search for videos which talk about product management and all of that stuff. people can look at our channel to learn a lot about product management. And there's like a lot of LinkedIn courses that people can go to and learn about. So learn, read, explore, and try to understand what the overall role is, right? I think that will get you some sort of an idea of what the role is. The second thing what I would do is, you don't learn things when you read things, right? You learn things when you build things. Try to build something on the side, right? Try to build maybe an ebook. Try to build a website for a specific niche. Try to build a product which you is solving a problem, right? So that's the actual job a product manager is doing. Try to do that in the side. You'll actually understand the nuances of what the process is and how can you add value as a product manager. So I think getting to that space will help you better transition and set you in a level where you are understanding what the interviewer is asking you, and also you're communicating the same to the interview and trying to tell a story around how are you trying to transition to that role, which will actually add value in that specific team or company, let's say. And as
Yeah.
Srinath said, right, uh, there are different formats where you can get through. It's pretty straightforward. There are standard 4 or 5 formats which people are interviewed upon. So get familiar with that and do as many mock interviews as possible. So the biggest savior for me was doing mock interviews, right? First 1 or 2 mock interviews, I was like shivering. I didn't know what to talk about. Next 10 interviews, right? I was rambling, right? After maybe my 20th interview or so, I started actually talking things which made sense rather than some gibberish or rubbish. So do as many mock interviews as possible and get yourself familiar. So that will also help you get a better product management role.
And for all
Yeah,
the viewers
that's
out there, we did an interesting product management interview series. So please do watch out for that. And I'm sure you'll have a lot of secrets, tips for all the aspirants who can get some key takeaways on how to crack the product management interviews.
yep.
Sorry,
Actually,
go ahead,
one more
Fanny.
thing that resonated a lot for me, Sidhu, when you were telling it, is not every role, don't apply for every role. So, for example, right, as an engineer, you're probably more technical. There are a bunch of technical product management roles that might be very relevant for you because, for example, you might be working on integrations, you might be working on building APIs, you might be working on building externalizable APIs where you're defining the corresponding schema by understanding the customer. So the transition to like such roles for you might be much more easier than to go into like a marketing product manager or a business product manager where your primarily goal is to like talk to customers and your interaction to engineering might be comparatively less. One more thing I would always recommend to anyone who's transitioning into product management is your real life is a biggest product that you can handle. So think of products around you as everything that can be improved, like critique everything that is around you and then define something that can be improved within that. That's a very nice way to think about a product, critique the product, identify the problems within it, and then define what would be your ideal state that solves that problem. So some of the things that people can look into as well. And
Yeah,
then
fair.
networking. Yep, and networking. So like Srinand was telling, right, in order for you to learn about the role you need to talk to people. So the more you talk to people the more information you can gather. Or like Sidhu was telling, like go to YouTube and then see the videos of what people are telling. I'm sure if you see like 4 different videos, the perspective of those 4 people are completely different because the role is like that. So the product management role in different companies varies a lot. Different types of product varies a lot. So depending on what you're passionate about, you can identify that corresponding role and then apply to that rather than applying to every product management role that you see online.
So I want to double click on what Fanny was saying here, right? So the role changes based on the size of the company, the maturity of the product, and the level of the product it is. And also, like a lot of companies have not understood product management completely at this point, right? So people do call product owners as product managers sometimes. Also, people call project managers or product managers sometimes. So there's a lot of confusion, and also even in product manager there are multiple different flavors. There could be a generalist product manager, platform product manager, growth product manager, data product manager, digital product manager. So as product managers and all the roles are very new these days, even though the field has been there for like 10 or 15 years, people don't understand it correctly. So try to understand what the role exactly is asking from you, right? Otherwise, you'll fell into a trap where it says the product manager, but you're doing something completely different that is not a product manager role. So try to understand what the role is and see how that actually ties back to whatever you are passionate about or what you're trying to do, and then try to get into that specific role if you want to.
Awesome. Probably let's start with a very simple thing, right? So, if there are two things that you would recommend to our viewers to say, "Hey, I'm trying to transition from an engineer role to a product manager," what are those two recommendations would be?
So my first tip would be network with people as much as possible, because that's how you'll be able to know about the opportunities if there are any. And my second would be problem solving. So problem, I mean, whether it's an engineer or a product manager, as Fanny said earlier, thinking from the customer shoes and solving problems from the customer shoes is pretty important. So I'll say these are my top two.
Yeah, I would say, right, like to start with, have a goal in mind, like what you want to become. So once you have a goal in mind, then, start crafting your resume in a way that reflects your product management resume. So once you have the resume ready, that's when you start looking at different roles which you want to apply and then reach out to people, right? Even though it's a small cold email, try to reach out to as many people as possible. So it's just a conversion rate, right? You might reach out to 100 people, you'll hear back from 5 or 6. If you reach out to 1,000 people, you'll hear back from 50 or 60. So try to reach out to as many people as possible, try to talk to the people, and then start applying for that specific role. Overall, I'd say don't fall in the trap of just the title. Get into the description and try to understand what the role is. Talk to people and see what it is.
I have very similar things actually. So the very first one is whenever I talk to people, right, people reach out to me and say, "Hey, I want to become a product manager." The very first question that I ask them is, "Why do you want to become a product manager?" You need to have that clarity, because just because you are an engineer for like some time doesn't mean you need to transition to a manager type of role where you try to understand things beyond what you're doing. But rather sit and understand, why do you want to be there? Do you want to be there because you love customers, or do you want to be there because you love to explore a broader thinking about a product, etc.? Try to define what you want to do, and then define why you want to become a product manager. The second tip that I have is, let's say you want to become a product manager, then think about all the products around you and see how you can start to optimize things. That will improve your thought process, and say anything and everything in this world can be improved. It's just the lens that you put in. I've heard this somewhere or read this somewhere. So I would always encourage someone to like put that lens in mind.
One other thing I want to share is a lot of people also say that I've been doing coding for 5 or 6 years. I hate coding. I want to move to. I think that's not a mindset which you have to have. Like, product manager is not a role for people who don't like coding, right? It's something a different ball game altogether, right? So once you get into it, get into the weeds of it, there's no one set formula on how to execute a product or get a product from an idea to product, right? So there are multiple different tools. That's where they call it more of an art than science, right? Where you there are certain set of frameworks, concepts, and tools. You actually combine all of them to get to that spot where you are launching a product. So it's not a role that is chosen because you don't like coding.
Awesome. Love the conversation, guys. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And for anyone who's watching, don't forget to watch our interview series. We talked about like all the different interviews. What are all the things that you need to do to transition into a product management role?